Let's get into Dwight Howard's legacy because I think he'll have a very similar one, and we're gonna have a very similar conversation as we just did with Carmelo. Superman, dunk contest champ, defensive player of the year, one of the greatest Magic players of all time. Career kind of took a little bit of a left turn when he joined the Lakers. They had a little that old super team in 2012, and then he joined the Rockets with James Harden, early James Harden. Then Kevin McHale was the coach. Then the back injuries started piling on, and then it was journeyman Dwight until it all ended. But now he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame, first ballot, as he should be. How do you remember Dwight Howard?
Man, if you're going to look at a guy that his stats don't do him justice at this point in his career, Dwight Howard's stats dropped to under 16 points a game, like averaging. That's like a modern NBA role player. Like, it is so crazy how badly like the end of your career will do you. Obviously, when he's bouncing around from Houston to Atlanta to Washington to Los Angeles to Philadelphia to Los Angeles again. I mean, it's tough for your career averages not to take a dip, especially when the later half of those years he's averaging under 10 points a game. But I mean, like, if you're talking about like great primes, Dwight Howard had an amazing prime. I mean, let me count this off: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years straight where he was an all-star. I mean, and besides him just being an all-star, he brought like I used aura once before in this episode. I'm not a big fan of that word, but I mean, I have to use it again. The aura in the slam dunk contest was partially, at least in my early days watching the NBA for me. Dwight Howard is what kind of cemented that for me because like obviously you saw it tail off and it kind of completely died after the Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon days. But I mean, when I watched the slam dunk contest, Dwight Howard was what I was essentially watching for when he was doing it. He was just what had such a great idea of what needed to be done, and obviously Shaq is not the happiest about that. But and then just in general, those Magic teams, like there was a correlation to Shaq because he was leading those Orlando Magic teams to places that they probably shouldn't have been, and was just the all around like playmaker and just do it all player for that team, the best player on that team. So I just remember his Orlando days, and then obviously fading off into maybe that Lakers tenure with that super team, that you were talking about. It got a little bit rough after that, but I mean, for what he did for the game during that period of time, I think that you can't really tell the story of early 2000s / like early 2010s basketball without Dwight Howard. And I think that his legacy is cemented in a lot of people's minds, although it's just really unfortunate how maybe the scoring efficiency and how good players have gotten at scoring, it will impact earlier guys, especially guys that like played throughout like mostly the early 2000s. Obviously everybody's numbers dip towards the end, but I mean 15.7 points a game doesn't sound like all that much, but Dwight Howard, it will remain one of my favorite players of all time. And I'm sorry Shaq, because Shaq was so great as well, and obviously they had that beef for so many years about who's the real Superman. It's got to be Shaq. Shaq is Superman, but Superman Jr. is Dwight Howard, and I don't care. They can share them the name, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised that his numbers did dip that low, even with the last handful of years that he played in the NBA. He was also on the Taiwan Beer Leopards, so don't forget that one too. Look, Dwight Howard is just so much fun. And when we talk about like the face of the NBA nowadays, I feel like Dwight Howard was a part of that, right? Like the old McDonald's commercial between him and LeBron with like the dunk contest and everything like that. The, kind of a remake of like the previous one that we had seen earlier on. And, like when the NBA was really trying to market itself and all that sort of stuff, it was really good stuff. He was a face in the NBA and contributing to that. And as you mentioned, took the Magic to new heights. Got 2 Magic hats literally hanging up right here, like talking to somebody who has rooted for this team literally since pretty much he like left. I only really know post Magic or post Dwight Magic, and it was unbelievable just like what he was able to actually do for this franchise, because it kind of sent us into a downward spiral. But such a great player, so talented, and I do unfortunately think that the Shaq hate kind of pushed him away. Like it was kind of kicking a man while he was down. He got his career kind of just like sputtered out, and he had some of the off the court stuff that was going on, and Shaq kind of really got on him. And then everybody obviously respects Kobe and his game, and unfortunately, like Kobe and Dwight weren't always, they weren't like the best of friends on the basketball court. So there was some of that. And I think that really hurt him. But I think over time, Dwight's legacy is going to age and heal. And I think everybody's going to realize there was a moment in the NBA where like it was Dwight Howard and then like the earlier days of DeMarcus Cousins. And there was just like no center in the NBA for like 10 years. And Dwight Howard was easily the best guy. You had like Joakim Noah, Marc Gasol in that era as well. Maybe like Roy Hibbert for about like a season and a half. But like you didn't really have centers in like those early 2010s. And I think his legacy will age well. But I think, in the next couple of years, we're going to forget about it, which is super unfortunate.
Yeah, and you look into the like right before the early 2010s when he like takes that Magic team to the finals in 2009. I mean, I obviously end up losing to the Lakers pretty handily, but I think that it's just maybe a little bit ironic, but also good for his legacy that he was able to get the championship with the Lakers. I mean, didn't do all that much for that team, but still was on it and got his NBA championship. So I'm happy for him in that regard. And I mean, just will always forever be a part of like if you watched Dwight Howard play, you knew that like his impact was probably bigger than the stats that like because I saw a basketball reference and he only averaged 18 points per game when he was on the Magic, but it just meant more like he was clearly a bigger and better player than what the stats say. And if you want to go that route, he averaged a double for his career. So I mean, like you were saying, in a time where there wasn't really like standout centers, he was that guy and kind of just like carried like where centers weren't the best player on their team, he consistently was, and that's how I'm going to remember Dwight Howard.
Also, he's going to be, and I don't even mean to make this negative because he was extremely talented. Before I make this next point, I'll add to your points per game thing when we take a look at some of these all-time stats. The reason that we're bringing this up is just because a lot of people will only look at the stats and they won't be able to kind of interpret the eras and everything. You said 18 points per game. I mean, some of that is obviously his rookie year, his second year, and everything like that. He was getting to a peak of 23 and 14, 21 and 15. I mean, that's obviously 14 and a half rounded up, but he was leading the NBA in rebounds. He had fought for 5 years. Like he led the league in rebounds for 5 years and then in blocks 2 other years, like 3-time defensive player of the year, like with the Magic, just a beast. And also Magic fans do recognize that technically that 2009 team did get further than the team with Magic and Penny because they were able to actually take a game off the Lakers. So that's one thing. But I think he will be one of those players that we remember, as you kind of alluded to with his points per game kind of going down and dwindling, was one of those players that had the rug pulled out from them during the Steph Curry 3-point revolution, the renaissance, where it was like, you need a jump shot. You need everybody to be out there. And it just wasn't really his game. And he was already kind of being hampered by the back injuries that were going on, had a ton of surgeries, especially, I believe also he was dealing with shoulder issues as well towards like during the Lakers tenure and then, a good chunk of the Rockets tenure. I think he'll be remembered as one of the players that, like the old guard of centers that wasn't exactly able to shoot the ball, but still just extremely effective. Maybe we'll see somebody else like that in the NBA that is at that type of level. It's also kind of a shame that Dwight never got an MVP. I feel like if his prime was a handful of more years and he maybe if he had stuck with the Magic or something like that, maybe he would have been able to get one because he was just so good. We just talked about Carmelo Anthony. He had no all NBA first teams. Dwight Howard's got 5.
Mm-hmm.
And also just
That's
general.
When he was the face of what a center was for the long period of time, and that was when all NBA teams were positioned as well. So he was the best center in the league for 5 years in his career, which is got to mean something.
Yeah, no, it does got to mean something. I'm glad actually you clarified that too, because the All NBA first team is definitely, or the All NBA teams have definitely like looked a little different over time. Because I think Joakim Noah's got a few of those too. No disrespect to Joakim Noah though. I know he was great and a defensive monster. Like, and no disrespect to those early 2010s Bulls teams. It's just should be said. I don't know. It's done a little differently now. But also did want to touch on too his outside of the NBA basketball career. He is a success story for the top pick coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. That is like a super huge thing. I think that's really great. And it's something that I think a lot of basketball fans should be appreciative of because that's not really around anymore, but it's kind of making its return almost. Not obviously maybe just like straight out of high school, but you're getting a lot of people or a lot of players taking a more professional approach to the way that they, get into the NBA. And then also, he was on the Redeem team, which is a super big point of emphasis here as well, on that 2008 Beijing Redeem team. And he was not on the 2012 team. And if he was on the 2012 team, I think that 2012 team probably would be the greatest of all time. No disrespect to Tyson Chandler, but that team didn't have any centers to defend the 92 Dream Team. That's just my own opinion. Going on a little bit of a rant, but Dwight Howard, a beast and one of the best players that we have seen pick up a basketball, not like of all time like that. You know what I'm talking about, for his own era.
Yeah. No, I completely understand what you're saying. And it's unfortunate that he never got his MVP. Obviously, he had one of his best seasons in that D Rose year where there was no one that was going to win it over D Rose. It wasn't going to be LeBron. It wasn't going to be Kobe. It wasn't going to be Dwight. Obviously, the standings of that ended up finishing Rose, Howard, James, Kobe. So I in a year that nobody was going to take it from Derrick Rose, and rightfully so for what he did for everybody that year. It's just a little bit unfortunate that he was never able. That was the closest he ever came, and it was just always the closest he was going to come.